I think we're going to have Solana staking ETFs around October 1st. I think it's definitely net positive for Solana and net positive for forward industries for sure. Are there some people who will go buy the staking ETF? Yeah, probably. That's fine. That's good for Solana, and that also means that it's just more awareness of Solana. It's going to cause some people to go learn about Solana. Some of those people will learn about Forward, and some people will prefer the corporate wrapper and the interesting things we're doing, and some people won't, and that's fine. But increased legitimacy of Solana is good for forward industries, unequivocally.
The crypto market is entering a new chapter, where Bitcoin anchors trust, Ethereum drives utility, and Solana accelerates innovation. Kyle Samani, co-founder and managing partner of Multicoin Capital, sees a new phase unfolding in digital assets as institutional adoption accelerates across Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. Based on current projections, Solana's price is expected to rise by 5% over the next 30 days, potentially reaching $233.83, a move that underscores growing investor confidence in the ecosystem. Samani, who also serves as chairman of Forward Industries, admits he was once skeptical of digital asset treasury companies, viewing them as little more than vehicles for financial engineering. Most have focused on leveraging up to accumulate Bitcoin, a proven store of value, while Ethereum continues to dominate as the foundation of decentralized finance. Yet with Solana, he argues, the opportunity is different. It represents a platform where real financial infrastructure and consumer applications can be built. Samani highlights SEC Chairman Paul Atkins' Project Crypto initiative as a turning point, aiming to bring U.S. securities markets on-chain. While incumbents like Nasdaq and DTCC move slowly, Forward Industries is positioning itself to tokenize equity, enable on-chain fundraising, and even handle payroll and vendor payments natively on-chain. He believes not all treasury firms will survive, with consolidation inevitable, but the emergence of Solana staking ETFs could further legitimize the space. Together, treasury innovation, ETF expansion, and application growth are creating a durable wave of adoption, one that feels more sustainable than prior retail-driven cycles. Miss this next rally and you'll regret it. Subscribe with notifications to catch every market-shaking moment.
I'd say I was a little skeptical of digital asset treasury companies a few months ago, and I've come around for a bunch of reasons. The most important of which is look, Bitcoin digital asset treasuries don't do anything other than financial engineering. They just lever up and buy Bitcoin, at least so far. Maybe they'll change, but as of now, that's what they do. And with Solana, there's actually an opportunity to build the future. SEC Chairman Paul Atkins gave a speech about 7 weeks ago or so, and he announced Project Crypto to the 4,000 employees at the SEC, and he said, "Hey guys, we need to move U.S. securities markets on chain." And I've been reflecting on what is it going to take for that to happen, and that's not just going to happen because Chair Atkins gave the speech and snapped his fingers. It's going to happen because people try to move over, and that's going to require engagement from Nasdaq and NYSE. It's going to require the DTCC. It's going to require the banks. And look, none of these parties are incentivized to move quickly and make this happen. And in fact, Nasdaq came out a week ago and they said we're going to trade tokenized securities in Q3 2026. So that probably means Q3 27 is my assumption of what that actually means. And I was like, man, we need to move faster and make things happen. As chairman of Forward Industries, I'm now in a position to effectuate change and make Project Crypto happen. We are working diligently now to be in a place to tokenize our own equity, and I think we'll be able to share more about that soon. But the difference between us and Galaxy is just a much bigger company, and they're going to be less nimble. Once we get our equity tokenized, then we want to do on-chain fundraising. We want to be able to do dividends, shareholder governance. Someone has to be first to do all of these things. And we are in a better position to move faster and be more nimble than Galaxy, Coinbase, or anyone else. So that is something we strive to do. The other side of this, of course, is just that's all capital market side of Forward Industries. And then the other side of this is like core business operations. The very first thing that Forward Industries did after closing on the pipe last week was buy a $1 million market order of Solana on chain. We tweeted the transaction ID, it's all out there. And I think that's important for obviously a starter for a digital asset treasury company. But beyond cap like that, we want to be able to pay vendors on chain. We want to be able to do payroll on chain. We want to be able to show that you can run a publicly traded company natively on chain. And ultimately, I hope Forward Industries will be the most on-chain native company, publicly traded company in the world. And I think there's value for the Solana ecosystem in doing that and obviously accelerating the vision of Project Crypto. I don't think more is good because it means more adoption. I think that's a pretty lazy way of thinking. I think that there are look, all of these treasury companies are, in a very literal sense, publicly traded permanent capital vehicles. Some of them may have different mandates. Ours is to increase SOL per share. Others may have other mandates. We'll see how that evolves. I think it's difficult for them to differentiate. Not impossible, but difficult. And to the extent that you have some differentiation, I think maybe only a handful are going to differentiate and justify their own independent existence in the long term. It looks like I think there's probably 20 or 25 DATs already out today, something like that. It looks like, based on just the pipeline of more that are coming, that number's going to get closer to maybe 40, maybe even upwards of 50. We'll see. The market is not going to sustain 50 independent DATs 2 years from now. And so there's going to be a lot of consolidation, which is actually a very interesting opportunity of M&A for the largest teams who have the most pedigree and can get deals done. Yeah, I mean, certainly Hyperliquid's an interesting spot because there's only 30% of the tokens are floating or whatever. Yeah. So that's certainly a very interesting dynamic that I'm guessing most public shareholders will not understand. But look, Hyperliquid's floating market cap is something like 17 billion or something like that. We'll see. I think the smaller assets are the more kind of in difficult situations. So think the avalanches, the squeeze, those kinds of things. They're going to be very difficult to sustain. The big question is going to be, when does the SEC expand its definition of NBBO, which is national best bid and offer, from the brokers to include on-chain liquidity? And I don't fully appreciate the dynamics of how Reg NMS and NBBO work. But as that gets updated, that's really going to unlock, I think, a lot more securities coming on chain. I mean, well, look, Chair Atkins gave the speech for Project Crypto 7 weeks ago. The full text of that speech is available online. I encourage you. It's a quick read. Yeah, just Google Atkins Project Crypto. So he is unambiguous in his views here. So it's going to happen. Look, the SEC is a big place. There's a lot of inertia. There's a lot of competing priorities of things going on. Custody rules, tax issues, staking ETFs, the generic listing standards I got approved last night. So I can't fully speak to how quickly things will move as it pertains to Project Crypto, other than I'm pretty optimistic it's going to move. I have had a chance to speak with Chair Atkins about this in the somewhat recent past, so he's aware of what we're doing, and I generally think is obviously supportive given this is directly aligned with Project Crypto. I think we're going to have Solana staking ETFs around October 1st. I think it's definitely net positive for Solana and net positive for Forward Industries for sure. Are there some people who will go buy the staking ETF? Yeah, probably. That's fine. That's good for Solana, and that also means that it's just more awareness of Solana. It's going to cause some people to go learn about Solana. Some of those people will learn about Forward, and some people will prefer the corporate wrapper and the interesting things we're doing, and some people won't, and that's fine. But increased legitimacy of Solana is good for Forward.
From Bitcoin's digital gold to Ethereum's DeFi dominance and Solana's push into capital markets, crypto's next chapter is unfolding in real time. Kyle Samani sees Solana as a transformative force in global capital markets. While Bitcoin has cemented its role as the premier store of value and Ethereum remains the backbone of decentralized finance, Samani argues Solana's vision goes further, aiming to power internet-scale capital markets. Unlike Ethereum's fragmented ecosystem, Solana embeds a native token standard called token extensions directly into its Layer 1, enabling essential functions for regulated securities such as KYC, dividends, stock splits, and ownership transfers. This unified approach, he notes, avoids the interoperability issues that challenge Ethereum's multi-chain environment. Throughput is another critical edge. Ethereum's Layer 1 can handle roughly 20 transactions per second, insufficient for modern finance. Solana, by comparison, has already demonstrated the ability to process nearly 10 billion transactions daily, enough to settle trades across global exchanges like NYSE, London, and SGX. Samani believes this scale could allow Solana to support global securities markets as soon as 2025. Adding momentum, Coinbase Ethereum Layer 2 solution, Base, has announced an open-source cross-chain bridge to Solana. By combining Ethereum's liquidity and developer base with Solana's speed, the integration broadens access for decentralized applications. Alongside Bitcoin's role as digital gold, this convergence highlights a maturing multi-chain future for digital assets. Let's get back to the interview.
I don't think it's that hard. And look, I think, right now, we haven't done a lot yet to prove to the world that we can outperform a Solana staking ETF. We understand that is our job to do so, and you should expect that we're going to have stuff to talk about, right, to that effect. So once that stuff becomes public information, then I think very reasonable investors will be able to look at that and say, oh yeah, this makes sense, and I can see why I might want to own this instead of the ETF. Project Crypto from Chair Atkins, which was on July 31st. That was my okay, I got to do something. And then I think separately from that, once I realized the opportunity for M&A as well, that was also, the first one was more of a missionary ethos thing, and then realizing the opportunity for M&A, that was my, oh wow, this can be wildly accretive if executed correctly. Both, but more starting with the former. I think it's premature at this stage for any DAT to be shelling out a bunch of its core asset for some illiquid speculative acquisition that may or may not outperform in token denominated terms. As the market matures, that I think will become the expectation. But that's not where the market is today. As a financial matter, I see a path to making Forward Industries a $50 billion plus publicly traded permanent capital vehicle. That's going to be a long journey, I think 5 years plus. But I can see a path to that happening. And as chairman, that is my objective for our shareholders, is to get us there. Look, Robinhood has been very clear they wanted to tokenize more things. Yeah. Larry Fink obviously said this for BlackRock. Brian Armstrong has been talking about this. Arjun from Kraken has been talking about this. So we know all of these people want to do this. And I think they're going to. And I think our existence just makes it a little easier and a little faster for them to do what they otherwise were going to try and do. Yeah, look, Solana's vision is to power internet capital markets, which I think is even a superset of Chair Atkins' vision for Project Crypto. I think Solana today is in the best position to capture the opportunity for these on-chain securities for a number of reasons. First and most importantly is there's a defined token standard to handle regulated issued securities. Solana rolled out this idea called token extensions maybe 18 months ago or something, and adoption's been a little slower than we would have liked, but it's there and it's built into the L1. And there's a mechanism to deal with all of the realities of having a regulated security on chain. That includes KYC, that includes dividends, that includes stock splits and reverse stock splits. That includes the ability to revoke ownership and reissue elsewhere. There's a bunch of these things you need to have to be a functional security. And all of those functions are built into Solana mainnet today, have been for some time. The big challenge with the EVM is, first, the EVM does not codify that standard at all. Are there people who are trying to build those same functions on top of the EVM? Yes. The problem, though, is that one of the big theses for the EVM is, well, there's many EVMs, and they all proliferate, and they're all these different places. And not all of the EVMs are functionally equivalent. And so dealing with the inherent heterogeneity of the many EVM environments makes it much harder for the tokenized security vision to exist in practice across the many EVM chains. Yeah, you could talk about Ethereum L1 as kind of like the canonical EVM, but Ethereum L1 does not support the transaction throughput to get to the future. Ethereum L1 supports on the order of 20 transactions per second, plus or minus, and like obviously that's not going to cut it. Today, Solana mainnet can process roughly on the order of 10 billion transactions in a day, something like that, and that is enough to settle all global securities transactions around the world, meaning NYSE, NASDAQ, London, SGX, etc. Now, that's not enough yet to deal with all the limits and cancels that the market makers place, but it is enough to deal with all of the settled trades. There's a long way to go for Solana. The job is by no means done, but we've at least proven that even by 2025, we have a system that can optimistically support global securities markets. And I think that combined with the fact that you have this guaranteed global KYC layer, securities layer, I think is a huge deal. And moreover, Robinhood's doing their own flavor of tokenized securities on Robinhood chain. Coinbase is doing their own flavor. We don't even know what they're doing yet, but like obviously they've said they're going to do something. BlackRock is doing their own thing with Securitize. Maybe they'll work with other vendors. Who knows? All of those are heterogeneous standards. Yeah, they have this. They're accomplishing the same functional objective, but like as a matter of software, they're different standards.
Yeah.
And the beauty of Solana choosing to enforce that in the L1 is that anyone who wants to issue is guaranteed to use the same standard. And so much in the same way, the Ethereum has already had this fragmentation problem across all of the L2s. You're going to see the same kind of problem play out again on Ethereum because you're going to have all of these tokenization standards and they're not going to all work together and it's going to be a hodgepodge mess.
And there's also very little even motivation for them to be interoperable because they would be such small...
They're all competitors.
I mean,
As 2025 unfolds, the trajectory of digital assets points toward a more mature and interconnected financial ecosystem. Bitcoin continues to serve as the bedrock of trust, Ethereum drives innovation through decentralized finance, and Solana is emerging as a high-speed foundation for capital markets. The integration of tokenized securities, institutional initiatives like Project Crypto, and cross-chain bridges such as Base, Solana demonstrate that blockchain adoption is moving beyond speculation into lasting infrastructure. Together, these developments signal the rise of a global on-chain economy that is more efficient, transparent, and resilient than traditional financial systems. Is crypto ready to replace traditional finance? Crypto never sleeps. Share your insights in the comments, spread the word within your network, and subscribe with notifications to stay ahead of the next market surge.